Hi, Kenna. Nice to see you. I'm Teddy. I'm with Deefun, which is a Disney fan community here in China.
Awesome.
And I watched the whole movie and I really enjoyed it. And at the end of the movie, tears just kept streaming down my face and I just couldn't help it.
Oh, I'm so
So-
glad to hear that.
Yeah, I can feel the love between the toys and the kid and the beautiful possibility of real connection and communication. It's just so moving. So could you explain a little about how you find that exact emotional sweet spot that brings the audience to tears? And when you're working on a film for years and become so familiar with the story, how do you maintain your own emotional sensitivity to those moments and keep yourselves from being numb to the emotion after seeing it so many times?
That's such a good question, Teddy. I think that, oh man, part of it is just, it's always the hardest thing to me about every single movie we make is, there's a lot of movies out there, a lot of movies and stories that are trying to be emotional. And it's things, the audience is exposed to so much. So it's hard to not make, stories that feel like, well, we've tread upon this emotion before, or, if anything, it's just hard to dig into the deep wells of these characters. It takes a lot from you as a writer and a creative. And I think that for Toy Story 5 and a lot of the Pixar films here, the best way that we get to that balance you're talking about is that we repeatedly screen these movies internally for our toughest critics, which are Pixar employees. And screening 1 through screening, we probably did about 8 screenings for Toy Story 5. There's a huge, you can tell in the quality of the emotion, it gets better and better and better. Because early on, we knew we wanted Jessie to have this deep emotional arc. We felt that there was a lot more to tell to her story. But early on in screening 1, it's like a shot in the dark, We're just kind of like, I think, let's try that. And then you show it to this audience, and you realize like, oh, okay, that really didn't land for them. I wonder why. And then you get all these different practice swings at bat with these screenings to try again. And usually the culprit of it too is just that emotional endings depend on teaching your audience to care about something properly in your beginning. So I think the better this movie got was because we were writing more clearly up front what we wanted audiences to care about, which was connection, it was Jessie's self-worth, it was all these things that would eventually pay off at the end of the film. But yeah, oh my gosh, Teddy, it's so hard. It's so hard.
We all know that there will be an original song from Taylor Swift in the film. Everybody is so excited to hear it in the movie. Could you share the behind-the-scenes stories of how this collaboration came to be? And from a directorial perspective, what was it like to witness Taylor translate Jessie's complex emotions into such a song?
Yes, it was amazing. And it was a little, it was up in the air at first because, as we all know, Taylor Swift is a very busy lady. She, just last year, 2 years ago, she was wrapping up such an epic amount of tours. Now she's getting married. And so for a while, even though it was a dream of ours to have Taylor collaborate with us, it wasn't always certain. But then when we finally were able to land a screening with her and she was able to privately view Toy Story 5, the thing that was just so incredible to hear as a creative up front was that she so instantly resonated with Jessie's story. And she herself also has a lot of nostalgia for the films. And it literally, she said it in her Instagram post recently, but she wrote the song in a day. It came to her so instantly, like a flash of lightning. And we were like, no, really? Just a day? And she was like, yeah, and we got to listen to it. And it was incredible. I could not have imagined a more fitting cherry on top for the film. So we're so grateful. We're so amazed that it all happened. It's very surreal, and the song is constantly stuck in my head, so I can't wait for you to hear it.
Yeah, I'm gonna listen to it at noon, I think, Beijing time.
Yes, awesome.
Let's talk about you, Kenna. You were only about 1 year old when the very first Toy Story was released. Now you are co-directing the newest installment alongside Andrew, who helped create the world from day one. So what is it like to make that leap from a child growing up with these characters to the filmmaker shaping their future? And how does your perspective blend with Andrew's in the story room?
Yes, it's so true. I remember Toy Story 2 was probably one of my first movies I ever watched in a theater. And I remember distinctly feeling, even though I was quite young, I was like, wow, this movie seems so much better than the ones that I'm used to. Like, there's something so powerful in it. And I loved Jessie as a character. I would draw her constantly. So it was so surreal once Andrew asked me to come on board and be a part of Toy Story 5 because I'm just a fan. I'm such a fan, and I've always been one. And you know, it's also intimidating because he's like written my childhood. And at the end of the day, though, I felt very ready. I felt like, oh, I love this character. I'm so familiar with this world, and I have such a deep well of respect for it. Sure, why not? I'll give it a try. And it's just been an amazing experience. It's very hard to put into words, you know, the scope of the impact of Toy Story on people's lives. So I'm very grateful that Andrew was willing to bring me on board and that we did honestly mesh so much. Like, we basically started reading each other's minds when it came to like writing this movie. We split everything half and half constantly, and it just became quite, there was just such a good flow to it. And we definitely have a good sibling relationship. Like, we both love mischief, we love playing. So it was such a fun process, and I learned so much from him. He's very, very good at what he does.
Kenna, your career journey is just fascinating. I found that you have worked for both Disney Animation and Pixar. So what would you say is the most significant difference of working in these two studios, and how has that experience influence your approach to directing a massive movie like Toy Story 5?
That's such a good question. I feel I worked for about a year and a half at Disney Animation, and I was mostly an apprentice, but the fun of that was that I got to work on several movies in fast succession. And then right after that was when I went to Pixar to work on Luca. And both studios make great movies, but I think both studios also have a different relationship to legacy. There's a lot of history in Disney movies, and so there's almost kind of a consistent, it's almost like if everything was Toy Story at Disney, because you're kind of constantly referencing like, you know, what is the magic of a Disney movie and how do we replicate that in a Disney film? And at Pixar, it's just a younger studio, and so you can kind of feel a little bit immediately when you're working at Pixar. There's just not as deep a library to rely on, and there is this, if anything, I think, not to Disney's fault, but there's a little bit more freedom because the Pixar brand is, I wouldn't necessarily say more adult, but there's almost more of an independent film styling to the way the movies are made. Both amazing experiences. I got to work with so many great people at Disney Animation, but it was the perfect stepping stone for me to then kind of thrive here at Pixar.
Okay, Kenna, thank you for your time and thank you for the good movie. Goodbye.
Thank you so much, Teddy. Bye.